I think this is a really interesting example of Frappato. So Frappato is usually blended with Nero di Avola in Sicily, in the Vittoria area, to make the Ceresuola, Ceresuola di Vittoria, so Frappato and Nero di Avola. And often you can get with Frappato a very light red fruits and slightly cherry sweets or slightly unresolved sugar element that stays on the palate. But this one is completely different to that. It has a more drier, serious style to it. I suppose in our terminology, what we might describe the nose as a bit funky. That's kind of a catch-all word when we have other elements that are not quite straightforward fruit, they're not spice, they just have this sort of element of this balance between reduction and oxidation, but it adds a bit of interest to this wine. I think it makes it kind of intriguing. You want to know more. When you pick up the glass, you think, oh, that's interesting. That's not my usual image of Frappato. And then it kind of draws you in, I think, this particular wine. Jancis Robinson wrote something about this. Sometimes you taste a wine and you want to do two things at once, is what she said. You want to clear the room, sit down, and focus all your attention on the pleasure of this wine. And at the same time, you want to invite all your friends round and start to share the wine with them. So I think that gives a little bit of the indication. It's intriguing, it's not heavy going, but it has some other dimensions to it. I'm just going to taste it too. So for me, on this wine, you get none of that residual sugar that you sometimes get with, none of that sort of, it's not exactly residual sugar, but it's an impression of that. But this one is completely dry. It feels dry, it feels savoury, it feels a more serious style Frappato. Again, I think there's a theme comes out in all of these wines, which incidentally, I have to say, is a great selection. And I can be completely objective about that because I didn't really know this selection until I came yesterday to taste some of these wines. And I think there's a kind of theme of people pushing boundaries a little, taking a few chances, doing something a little more extreme with dedication in order to get the best that they can out of this variety, in order to also express something about their image or their impression of how they want to make the wine, which I think makes for a very characterful and interesting list.
Kamil, again, you're an ambassador for COS in
yes,
Poland, officially.
My second time, thank you. I had the pleasure to have the COS in my restaurant, the older vintage of Ceresuola di Vittoria, because we still have 2000 vintage, 2006 and 97. And then even older vintage really going well, they're perfectly drinking at the moment. So that's why, the Frappato which we have now, 2016 vintage, is really drinkable at the moment. I will not recommend it to keep it longer. Even now, I will serve it slightly chilled till 14, 15 degrees to keep the freshness and a great acidity in the wine. There is a wine which helps us with the one very extremely Polish dish, which is a beef tartar. Because normally people in Poland drink a vodka with that, just shot of vodka, and they don't enjoy the beef tartar and the vodka. But in our all restaurants, if I'm correct, I know that in Kieliszki na Chorze, in Kieliszki na Późnej, serve the beef tartar with horseradish, with Frappato, and I'm doing the same. I like this because, of course, the tartar is basic on the red meat. That's why we need to have something more round, more full body. But not full body about the oakiness. I mean, it's about the freshness and then like a fruit character with great and a high fruit level in the wine. Because the horseradish and the Dijon mustard which you have, it is quite spiciness. And that's why the level of the fruit can really great balance this. So that's a wine which is really help us to find a good way for beef tartar, and I'm really happy with that.
Thank you, Kamil. So look at the amazing story that we are living. 15 years ago, when I wrote my first wine book, Frappato was a footnote in wine encyclopedias. Okay, it was on the list, very long list of Italian grape varieties. Then it was somewhere in blends with other grape varieties. Then people started bottling it separately, and suddenly we started learning about the Frappato. And now you have Frappato in Australia, because it is becoming a grape that everybody is looking at. And this is within really 10 years, thanks to producers such as COS. So thank you so much for this wine.